Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Bernoon here with Israeli News Live. It is June the 29th, 2025. And, the cover photo doesn't really say it all. A new crown of thorns. We're actually going to be talking about dividing the land. As many of you already know, I have done videos about the Palestinians being more Semitic than the Edomite Jewish people that have returned to the land. But I saw an article online that had this picture here, and it kind of inspired me as well. The article does go into the dividing the land of Israel, and the guy wrote a very good article on that. But when I saw this, I could not help but think of the crown of thorns that Jesus wore. But instead, that crown of thorns has been placed on the Palestinians in modern time. Now, this video clearly, though, is going to be more about the situation that people totally falsely are suggesting that it is biblical that God is going to bring judgment in modern times for dividing the land. Well, if he did, I would have to say that he would really bring it for those that are dividing the land, or I would say Psalm 83, where it says, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation." But even that is dealing with a different time era. But if nothing else, we could see that the ones they really want to cut off from being a nation are the Palestinians. They don't want you to know that they are truly ethnically Jewish people. But Justin Reynolds wrote an article here, and that's where I got that picture from. But I want to just quote something that he says right here at the end of his article. He said, "The hard fact is that any conceivable solution to the conflict, one state, two states, parallel states, demands trust and compromise by challenging both sides to decide whether their love of the land is more important than exclusive ownership of it. The parallel state solution goes to the heart of the issue. As the novelist Eyal Meged puts it, in one land, two states, referring to the Bible story beloved of Jews, Christians, and Muslims, he says, it is impossible to divide the land of Israel and impossible to divide Palestine, either physically or mentally. Perhaps, as Solomon would have admonished us, true love would rather share than mortally divide." I agree with that. So he concludes here, and yet confederation already exists in outline, notably in central Jerusalem, where borders open and distinct laws, regulations apply to citizens, different cultures and faiths. A de facto parallel states structure, albeit controlled by one state, governs much of the West Bank, where two cultures live side by side, policed through cooperation between Israeli and Palestinian security forces. The foundations are there. The challenge is to make them just. That's going to be pretty doggone hard uphill battle, especially when you have a government that is genociding the Palestinians of Gaza. Before we get into this, and we're going to be going into Joel, is going to be our main focus today. We're going to be looking at quite a few different passages as well. But before I get into that, one thing I did want to share with you, many of you are very familiar with Carrie Madej. Here she is with Jen Allen Ministries here on television, being promoted as this altruistic doctor, when in fact, she has now been found liable by a court in Tennessee for the death of my father-in-law and also the injuries to my wife as well, for using an insane amount of hydrogen peroxide. My father-in-law also nebulized with a formula that caused irreversible damage that led to his death. So her, along with two other doctors that will find justice in a separate case there, very, very troubling, very notable case there. And I also wanted to share with you, this was from earlier video that Ethan put out on his site, Ethan Suto. You can find him on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description below. I want to put on here where Carrie actually had talked about this on the video that Ethan did. She played a clip here from this man's channel here, Chris Smith. Listen to what she has to say here in this video.
Still practice my ability to heal people as in the example of Jesus and the disciples, meaning, in those ways. So yes, there's rumors out there and false information saying they took away my license. They did not. I gave it back. And also rumors that I hurt somebody, and they're all fabricated. I did not do any of those.
Is this Stephen Suto?
Yes, that is false. I did not give that man what they said they did. There is no case against me. They filed papers, but there is no case against me. I don't have anyone representing me. There's no settlement. I don't have signatures on any of those papers.
All right, you just heard for yourself, and I hope Chris Smith will get the chance to see this video as well. Now, Ethan is going to insights from the final judgment that was placed against Carrie Madej here. I'll play a little clip of this, and then we're going to get into this teaching here today. Listen in.
Court case in the 9th Judicial District for the state of Tennessee, which covers Morgan County. You can see here, it is my stepfather, my mother, and the estate of my grandfather versus Carrie Madej. And this is basically the final judgment. I once again strongly encourage you to go look at my previous video, because that's where I show the default judgment, the document, and it's linked in the description there, and I'll probably link it in the description here too, that shows that she is guilty for what she did, that she is liable, that there's no question about it. This is the judgment. This is the final sort of document in this proceeding in regards to her guilt in this matter, I guess you could say. This will be linked in the description below. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically the judge saying that, you know, he oversaw the case, allowed the defendant, Madej in this case, to have, it appears, about 7 months to present any countervailing proof against the plaintiff's claim for damages. She provided none. She decided to ignore the courts and just basically give a middle finger to the courts. And pretty much here it is. The estate of Stefan Suto is to receive $181,000 in compensatory damages and $1 million in punitive damages. Yana Benoon, my mother, is to receive $100,000 in compensatory damages and $50,000 in punitive damages. All court costs are taxed against the defendant, for which execution.
Ethan will go on to say that even though we may in all likelihood never collect on this, it's not a matter of collection of justice, that she has been found liable for her actions. And I think in the other video that he's referring to, he quotes the judge in there where the judge says that she was reckless and egregious, and basically that she intentionally came to cause harm. It's very straightforward, and Carrie has had ample opportunity to come and defend herself. She refused to, as she said in that video, she decided to do nothing. Well, she's been found guilty and liable in this case here. So I just wanted to share that with you, that her allegations are false. There will be more information coming up, and it's going to go to part 2. The 2 doctors in Florida is coming next. So we'll share those things as they come available. Can't share that beforehand, but I just wanted to share that with you now. Let's get right into this message here. Joel. Now, in the Hebrew version, it's chapter 4. In the King James version, we are going to be looking at Joel chapter 3. So let me just start off with the English version here for you, because this is often cited as a division of the land of Israel. And also we have, besides Joel, you have 2 in the case of, I think this is Daniel's prophecy, and chapter 11, I think I'm in Daniel, make sure here. Daniel chapter 11, yes, Daniel chapter 11. And where he says here, and shall deal with the strongest fortress with the help of a foreign god, and who he shall acknowledge shall increase in glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for a price. I have often cited that because the king of the south is actually the Melech HaNagiv, which clearly that's right here in the red and right here on the top of the yellow here would be an Israeli leader. That's the only king of the Negev you could have, the Negev desert. And it doesn't say that he'll push at him, but he pushes with him, the king of the north. And of course, they overflow, pass through the countries there. And that is countries plural, Aratzot right here. It is not a singular country, so it has nothing to do with coming with against the modern state of Israel. But we could even go back and as far as in World War I, when they go in there and they overthrow all those countries in the Middle East to establish the state of Israel. Um, it could also be where Netanyahu, the king of the Negev, pushes with the king of the north, which would be in this case here, the different presidents of the United States, where they have pushed and come against those 7 nations that they wanted to destroy in 5 years, any nation that didn't agree with what they wanted to do. There's a lot of things that could be said here in regards to that. And I do want to bring out, too, another thing I thought was interesting in Ezekiel. This is Ezekiel 36, and I wanted to bring this up before we go into Joel. Ezekiel 36, verse 5 specifically, therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the nations, against all Edom, that have appointed my land unto themselves for possession with the joy of all their heart, with disdain of soul to cast it out for a prey. That is no doubt, that has a twofold fulfillment. That was during the days of Herod the Great, who was an Edomite king who appointed this land to himself, the Pharisees included, along with in modern times where Israel, the so-called Jewish people, the Khazarian Empire of Europe that came down and appointed this land for themselves, which were all Edomites to begin with. They claimed that the Romans are the Edomites, but the true Edomians, and you will see that conclusively in this proof here, are 100% this group that came out of Europe. And we're going to get into all of that. A lot to be said here, mainly because in Joel, the very chapter they use, and like I said, chapter 3 in the English Bible, they use all of this to try to justify that God is going to bring judgment on the world for what has happened to Israel in the ancient times there. I am going to prove to you, I believe successfully, that this falls in the time of Jesus Christ. Let's follow along. For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring back the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will enter into judgment with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and divided my land. So this is where this idea comes up from. Now, by the way, do you know during the time when Joel prophesied this, there was no such thing as the Valley of Jehoshaphat. So why does Joel call it the Valley of Jehoshaphat? It literally means Yahweh's judgment. That's the compounded word that you have in the Hebrew language right there. It is Yahweh's judgment. Okay, Shaphat, right here. There's your judgment. And Yod He Vav, the first part of Yahweh's name. Basically it's saying God's judgment, the valley of God's judgment. And Christ standing there at the Mount of Olives, being brought through the Kidron Valley to the judgment hall of the high priest to judge him, when in fact that judgment would be brought down upon them. And it does bring back both the dispersed of the house of Israel and Judah. Now, Joel sets up that time frame when he says here, for behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring back the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. Now, at this time here, you're dealing more with Tyre and Sidon that were selling out the children of Judah and stuff into the Greco-Roman Empire or Grecian Empire at that time, before the Greeks even came down and had taken reign over this country, the tribes of Judah. But it could be implied that this is speaking of that time, especially if I'm looking at Jesus Christ as the fulfillment of this, that it was during the Babylonian exile where the king of Persia, Cyrus, actually brought them back to their land. And we see this very obviously in the Cyrus cylinder here. As you can see, it's what's interesting. The Cyrus cylinder does not specifically say Israel, but because he's returning all the peoples to their territorial lands, and that's what we have written in here. And he says here in lines 28 going down, at Marduk's august command, all the kings of the entire world, those who are seated on thrones living in distant countries from the upper to the lower sea, from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, which included the Judean Empire at the time, as well as the kings of Amuru, Arabia, dwelling in tents, and all those kings brought their heavy tribute and kissed my feet in Babylon, from the city of Nineveh to the city of Assur, Susa, and Akkad in the land of Asuna, the towns of Zaban and Mutaruna. Darfar is the region of the land of the Gutans, and the sacred cities of the other side of the east of the Tigris, which had been laying in ruins since days of old. I returned the statues of the gods who used to dwell therein, and had them live there forevermore. I also gathered the former people and brought them back to their habitations. Okay, that's why the children of Israel went back. And it wasn't just the children of Israel, but it was all the people they had taken captive at that time. Now, let's see here. So, generally, when we speak of the dividing of the land of Israel, people quote Joel chapter 3. I got a lot of notes here. I got about 30 pages of them. Ezekiel 36, 5 also, and also Zechariah chapter 14. These are some of the ones that are often quoted in this. So we're going to be getting into a lot of this information here, and hopefully I can bring in my notes on this as we go along here. So let me bring you back over here to the book of Joel, and I'm going to actually drop out some things because I don't need that any longer. I'll save Ethan so we can pull that up a little bit later. This is also from one of his videos there. We can drop that down as well. And we'll go back here to the book of Joel here. So, okay. So I will gather the all nations, bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will enter into judgment with them there for my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and divided my land. And they have cast lots from my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine and have drunk. And also, what are you to me, O Tyre and Zidon, in all the regions of Philistia? Will you render retribution on my behalf? And if you render retribution on my behalf, swiftly, speedily will I return your retribution upon your own head. By the way, Tyre and Zidon at that time, you have to remember, Joel prophesied around 780 to 800 years before the coming of Christ. And the Tyre at that time was very known for being involved in the slave trade on the Mediterranean, and the Grecians, they were known as a different type of people at that time, were very much involved in this. And let me see if I can find my notes on that specifically there, where they were. Here we go, right here. That they were in power between 600 to 1000 BC, and they sold Israelites to the Greeks, and they conquered later. They were conquered later by the Babylonian Nebuchadnezzar that laid siege to Tyre in 580 BC. So when God said he's going to bring retribution upon their head, that itself was fulfilled in 580 BC. For as much as you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried it into your temples, my goodly treasures, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the sons of the Lebanim, that you might remove them far from their border. And again, that was all fulfilled way back then. Behold, I will stir them up out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your retribution upon your own head. And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the men of Sheba, to a nation far off, for the Lord hath spoken. Now, we don't have any historical evidence of that taking place, But that land that he's talking about is going down into Saudi Arabia or even into the areas of Yemen, modern day Yemen. Uh, and whether or not they actually fulfilled that or not, again, on a historical level, I could not say on that. Proclaim ye this among the nations and prepare war. Stir up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Haste you and come, all you nations round about, and gather yourselves together. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the nations be stirred up and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And there will I sit to judge all the nations round about. Now, the mighty ones, if you ever remember, even when Jeremiah prophesied that God had called King Nebuchadnezzar to bring judgment. And he didn't just bring it on the evils that Judah had done, but he also brought that judgment upon Tyre, Sidon, and all those surrounding nations as well. Let the nations be stirred up and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the nations round about. Put ye the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come tread ye, for the winepress is full. And the vats, whoops, sorry about that. Good gosh. For there will I sit to judge all the nations round about. Put ye the sickle in, come tread ye, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near, the valley of decision. And the day of the Lord is referred to as the time of Jesus Christ. Now watch what it says in verse 15. The sun and the moon are become black. And the stars withdraw their shining. And the Lord shall roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be a refuge unto his people and a stronghold to the children of Israel. All you have to do to begin to see these passages here is to begin to look at Matthew, for example. Chapter 27, Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. The earth did quake and the rocks rent. The graves were open, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. All right, that's one right there. Luke says here, and it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the earth until the 9th hour, and the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. I think Luke also shares that as well. No, that was actually, I forgot. I brought this. This is another one I thought was interesting. When people look at, there's going to be a judgment for dividing the land of Israel. Even Jesus said here, for the Holy Ghost shall teach you in the same hour what you ought to say. And one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother that he divide the inheritance with me. And he said unto him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? You know, he's not into the dividing business and worried about what they're doing in these modern times with the land of Israel. Okay, totally different subject altogether, though. But truly, the sun and the moon did become black, and the stars did withdraw their shining at the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And the Lord shall roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. And Jesus Christ did exactly that when he cried out, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. He did. That was the Lord crying out. But the Lord will be a refuge unto his people and a stronghold to the children of Israel, not just to the house of Judah. And we see this in Acts chapter 2, when Jesus truly became not just to the house of Judah, but also, as Peter said in Acts chapter 2, verse 36, be it known unto you, O house of Israel, this same Jesus whom you have crucified is both Lord and Christ. And notice, they had gathered in from the far reaches, east, west, north, south, everywhere, and had come back into Israel, a remnant of them. I mean, you can see too, the scripture being fulfilled, they will take the hold of the wing of him that is a Jew or Judean, and they will say, we have heard that God is with you. We will go with you. And that becomes a plural after it deals with that Judean man, only because why? It was fulfilled in Acts 2:38, where the 120 are in the upper room. Now you've got the plural coming out. Then the house of Israel has now become part of it. Joel chapter 3 is clearly being fulfilled. But the Lord will be a refuge to his people, right? So shall you know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her anymore. Why does it say there shall be no strangers in her anymore? Because the very blessing of Jesus Christ has now been poured out upon both Jew and Gentile. All you have to do, Genesis, right? Chapter 12. I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you. This is to Abraham and Abraham alone. Make thy name great and be thou a blessing. I will bless them that bless you, and him that curses you will I curse. That was Pharaoh and oh gosh, who was it that king that come against Abraham as well to take his wife Amalek? He took his wife, right? And God cursed them both. In fact, in the house of Pharaoh, according to the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the house of Pharaoh, they were sick for a year. He plagued them with a disease. Why? Because he took his wife, and God had already promised that through him was going to be that promised seed. So Sarah had to be protected. But he says then, he goes on to say, and in these shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Kol mishpachot ha'adamah. So through Abraham, all the families of the earth are going to be blessed. Not only that, though, you have in here in Genesis, gosh, what chapter is this in here? Genesis chapter 17, right? Notice, and I will establish my covenant between me and you. Ubenecha, that het right there is him himself. Uvain in red, zeracha, your seed, singular, not zarim. And yes, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they do use the word seeds, plural. Achrecha, after you. Okay? Ladoratam. And throughout your generations. Labarit olam. It is an everlasting covenant. Now notice up here, though, et bariti, my covenant. Bene, between me and you. See, that's God, Bene. It's a singular between God himself and you, Abraham. For all the generations for an everlasting covenant to be a God unto you and to thy seed after you. And again, only his seed. Lecha, la Elohim, uzeracha, achrecha. Everything in the singular goes right into verse 8 as well. I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land of thy sojournings. It doesn't say anything about going to give it to every one of the little kids that come along. It's all in a singular. Every single time it's in a singular. Why? Because it's all about Jesus Christ. Always about him. See? God makes it singular too. Natati. See? God is going to do it. I will give to you, to your seed. Okay? Everything in there. Everlasting blessing. I will be their God. All right? Now, the only time you get the there in there, lehem, is because the seed is singular. But to the people, he becomes our God. And that blessing is going to be because the seed is going to be to all families of the earth. Not just to one, not just to Israel, not just to Judah, not just to Jacob, to all the families of the earth. That's what Genesis 12 is all about. So when you come back over here then to Joel, what are we looking at? So shall you know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her any more. When God has come to the valley of Jehoshaphat, where God does the judging. And it shall come to pass in that day that the mountains shall drop down sweet wine, and the hills shall flow with milk, and all the brooks of Judah shall flow with waters, and a fountain shall come forth of the house of the Lord, and shall water the valley of Shittim. Do you not realize that Jesus Christ, come see that he is good? We have tasted of him. He is the honey, he is the milk, he's every bit of it. He is the bread of life. Even when they said, our fathers ate manna in the wilderness, and Jesus said, and they're everyone dead. They were over in Hades and couldn't get out until Christ came, until he brought forth that judgment. When he brought forth that judgment, he went over to Hades and he preached to the lost souls there. And he also brought with him those that were held captive, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They had died believing the promise of the coming of the Son, but had never received it. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be desolate. Why is Egypt a desolation? I said, well, Egypt's not a desolation. Egypt's inhabited to this day. No, Egypt has become a desolation. I think it's written in the Egyptian writings there that they would become nothing but a city of tomb, or country of tombs, of the kings, of the great pharaohs, and things like that. It's no longer ruled by the modern or the ancient days anymore. They became a desolation. Now it's just whatever Arabic peoples that are there. And Edom shall be desolate. They were sent into exile. Wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. There you go, right there. I mean, that was obvious for the mere violence they did against Jesus Christ when Herod the Great, who was an Edomian, an Edomite, and he killed all those little children down in Bethlehem trying to get after Jesus. We forget about that, don't we? Sure do. Definitely, definitely. Those things are often forgot. Let me just bring up some more things here. Let me find where I can find it at here. And by the way, just to kind of show you how some of this happened, the Maccabean revolt, right? 167, 160 BC, Judah Maccabee and his brothers revolted against the Seleucid Greeks. That's when the Greeks finally had come in and taken alliance here. But what did they do? They made an alliance with Rome, just like Netanyahu does today. He's made an alliance with the United States. Uh, and then, and that, of course, turned against him. Then the gradual Roman intervention that comes in there after that. But by the way, most scholars believe that the Kidron Valley, right between the Mount of Olives and the Temple Mount, is what they believe is the Valley of Jehoshaphat, because there is no biblical place for Jehoshaphat. And to me, that would actually be very accurate, because that's exactly where that judgment came in at. It was right there. So, and a lot of these nations too, like the Amalekites, the Amorites, and the Philistines. Do you realize that they were totally wiped out by David, by Solomon, by Saul? David pretty much finished off many of those as well. And during his time, he defeated the Philistines in the valley of Rephaim, and God judged the Philistines there. In fact, anytime you get those valleys where they're defeated at, that can be a valley of Jehoshaphat, because that is where God enters into judgment with them. That's exactly what has taken place during that time. But let's see here. Got so doggone many notes there, and I don't know. Probably won't use a lot of these here that I do have. Okay, let me just move down. They shed the innocent blood, but Judah shall be inhabited forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. You see, some people think, oh, that didn't happen anymore because they were exiled by the Romans. No, Judah has always been inhabited. And Jerusalem has been inhabited generation to generation because the true Semitic peoples of the origin there are your Bedouins. They are your Palestinians. Many of them, as I pointed out in articles recently by Jonathan Cohen, by Zvi Misanai, by even David Ben Gurion, the first president of Israel, also wrote books about it, that the Palestinians were Semitic Jewish people. They've been there all along. That's where you have the unwalled villages. And they go in there and they just slaughtered those people. And he says right here at the very last here, and I will hold as innocent their blood that I have not held as innocent, and the Lord dwelleth in Zion. So, the thing is Christ is, when he came, this is what changed everything. This is what brought forth that judgment that we would have. There's a couple other things I want to share with you real quick as well. Isaiah sometimes also gets brought into this as well. Um, but Isaiah 28, that is. But notice again, it's speaking about Jesus Christ. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a costly cornerstone for sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste. And I will make justice the line of the righteous and the plummet, and the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, right? There's that judgment of God right there. uh, the valley of Jehoshaphat, and the water shall overflow the hiding place, and your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with the netherworld shall not stand. When the scouring scourge shall pass through, then you shall be trodden down by it. The only way that covenant with death and hell could be disannulled was when Christ Jesus came and died. And by the way, that's not in a singular either. That's their Baritchem. They had made a covenant with death. And so Christ, when he came, he did away with that. And another thing I think that is so fascinating to prove that this prophecy is about Jesus Christ is verse 20. For the bed is too short for a man to stretch himself, and the covering too narrow when he gathereth himself up. Do you realize in the very tomb there that they have there, right there by Golgotha, do you know that that tomb was too short? And it's built on that tomb was discovered on the largest grape vineyard with the largest cisterns and all, I think second largest cisterns in all of Israel ever discovered. Remember, what was it? I forget the guy's name that came and wanted the body of Jesus. He was a wealthy man. He owned a vineyard nearby, and our garden nearby, I think is the way it's written in the Bible there. And he was believed to be shorter than Jesus, and they had to hastily cut out the tomb and make it longer. So the bed is too short for a man to stretch himself. For the Lord, I will rise up as in Mount Perazim. He will be wroth as in the valley of Gibeon. So a lot could be said about that. I won't take the time to go into all that as of right now. Ezekiel also, I think we mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but just in case I didn't, I'll say it again. I've spoken against the residue of the nations, against all Edom that have appointed my land unto themselves for possession with the joy of all their heart. That's what really happened at the time of Jesus coming. That's why the Pharisees, many of them were Edomites. Could easily be proven that they were Edomites that did exactly that. And, so we got so many scriptures that are being fulfilled in this. So, no, it's not a modern day dividing of the land. No, that's not going to be a judgment that comes on America, although people might cite, different hurricanes that happened after they made this decision or that decision with this president or that president. Let's face it. They've not divided anything as of yet. And if anything is divided, really, you're dividing up the land and taking it from the Palestinians, who are true Semitic peoples of that region there. And that's been proven over and over again. If any judgment comes on this nation here, it's going to be because we have bombed these little children and their mothers, their fathers, and have murdered them by the tens of thousands. That blood cannot go unanswered. Only Christ is the only way you will get out of this. There is no other way to get out of it other than Jesus Christ. Um, So I just want to make sure we make that clear for people so you really understand that. Listen, in closing, I just want to share with you some really amazing testimonies we had this past Sunday. Jason Miller there talking a little bit about his, but Jennifer sharing about her cataracts as well as Kathleen. Let me just share this with you real quick for those of you that are, we've been doing this Lifewave now almost 2 years, and the testimonies just get more and more amazing. And normally it's from these people that have really stuck it out the longest. Dr. Gunter up there at the top, he's the one you hear a lot about, but listening to some of
It doesn't take much because, when you suddenly start, when you've lost a lot and you've lost everything, and now you're suddenly getting even 5 or 10% back. I mean, that's a significant development that just makes you feel on so many levels like $100. I mean, the number of things that have happened for me, especially my hip, which that's the worst pain I had in my body. It was gone in 2 days. I wish everybody had that story. I really do. It hasn't come back in 2 years.
I went to the doctor every 2 years. My eyesight was getting worse and worse, and they told me I was going to need cataract surgery.
Jennifer Collins.
Well, lo
on
and
her
behold,
cataract.
I get on Lifewave. I got on it like a year later, and I was on it for a whole year, and I just had my eyes examined 4 weeks ago. And the doctor was like, interesting. Wow. And I'm like, do tell. And he goes, first of all, you don't need cataract surgery. And then he showed me my old prescription from 2 years ago. And he said, look at this. He says, I've seen people's eyesight improve a little bit here and there, possibly due to whatever changes they're making. Yours have improved 50%. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Pretty exciting.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
That's kind of unheard of.
50%.
He said it's
That's
unheard
great.
of. And then I told him I was on stem cell patches. And he's like, well, I have heard that stem cells are really good for you and they can do amazing things. So it is working. And my hair's getting thicker, where our whole family, all the women get the crown, kind of like a little bit of receding line. My hair is coming in super thick. Of course, I use the X39, the X49. I sometimes do Eon. I do carnosine, glutathione, combinations.
Awesome. That is amazing to hear. So thank you so much. And also with your husband, he had the Morgellons. How's he doing on Morgellons?
It's getting a lot better. It's like since the last time I talked to you, it's a lot better.
Even more.
It's like going away. The areas where the skin was opening up because of the nanofibers that's a lot better now.
Looks almost completely gone. Skin's looking
That's
a lot
Jennifer's
better.
husband you heard speaking there.
That is
about
amazing.
it. And then Kathleen, here she goes.
She was not interested in the business. But what happened, she was doing a mission trips in the Philippines. And someone mentioned about reading the menu. They couldn't see it. So she just read the entire menu to everyone and realized that she couldn't do that before. And at that moment, she had this realization that I can see, And so then she went to her doctor and a few other ladies, and has now signed up, I think 3 people in the last month or so, just from that mission trip that was in a month ago.
Oh gosh. I know Kathleen somewhere in this will say in there that she's driving now, and Kathleen was legally blind from cataracts, and she has her after using X39. Anyway, so if you want to get the product, definitely go do it. If we can help you, just let us know. You could write us at banoonx39 on gmail.com, or you can just join yourself. You can either join, or if you want to buy it, you can buy it. You don't have to join as a customer, or as a brand partner. So you can always just go in there, shop, click on whatever you want, but be sure to become a preferred customer. And if you want to join it as a business, you can join us tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Banoon X39. We will, and I will try to make sure I get the link hooked back up, but banoonx39.com. That's our website link for our our broadcast tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So we'd love to have you on with us tonight. God bless you and thank you for listening.